This is MLB Now. We are the show for the thinking fan. Hi again, everybody. I'm Brian Kenny, taking you up to the Dodgers and Twins at 1 p.m. Eastern. Live baseball right here on MLB Network. The Dodgers are off to a 10-4 start. The Mad Dog will join us for the showdown. John Heyman, Yonder Alonso, Dan Levitt on the panel today. We'll have our baseball and unbaseball-y plays of the day. That big Cardinals-Phillies game, by the way, last night. We've got plays that don't make the highlights, don't make talk shows, but lead to winning and losing. But first, the Orioles making news, calling up Jackson Holliday as their bumper crop continues to arrive. They will soon have 3 blue-chip superstars on the field, all drafted in a 4-year period. What the Orioles are doing is exceedingly rare. Let's do a little digging in. Jackson Holliday is what you call a 1-1. The first pick, first round. Matt Holliday's son, total package. He's done nothing but succeed. He's expected to be a major league star. But he is the 3rd total package to be drafted and developed in the recent Orioles rebuild. Mike Elias is the general manager. There he is. Sig Mejdal is his number 2. They were part of the Cardinals in the early teens and the Astros in the late teens. I don't know if it's just those two doing this. It's likely a team effort, of course. But this is the 3rd time that they've been part of a club that has drafted very successfully. Their first draft was 2019. Grand slam right out of the gate. Adley Rutschman, a 1-1, franchise-changing player, now the number 1 catcher in the game. They got Gunnar Henderson in the 2nd round that year. He was the Rookie of the Year last season, had a 6-win season, already a top 10 shortstop in the sport. Heston Kjerstad is still a big prospect, tearing up AAA. Jordan Westberg is a starting infielder. They are killing it in the draft. And the key to building a championship club is drafting and developing talent, more specifically, position player talent. Obviously, there's more to it than just that, but that's your foundation. And what is amazing is that we are now in an age of constant all-star and youth travel teams where scouting is centralized. You know where the players are. It's the age of data, specific measuring with superior tools, and we have new awareness of our own human bias. And yet, when you study the Major League Draft, you quickly learn just how staggeringly low the shooting percentage is in the draft. We are still not very good at projecting baseball talent. Here's an example of a bumper crop now. The building of the Cubs championship core a few years ago. Javi Baez was a first-rounder, 2011. Chris Bryant was the number 2 pick overall, going to 2013. After that, Schwarber, Ian Happ the next 2 years. Anthony Rizzo, by the way, came over in a trade, so we're not counting him. But this right here, just these are 5 guys. Wild success. 3 stars, essentially, in a 4-year stretch. A stretch with 252 draft picks. You just need a couple. You need to nail down a few winners. Here are the Astros, who rebuilt in the same time frame. They got George Springer in 2011. The Jeff Luhnow group came in 2012. They hit the grand slam with Carlos Correa. Again, the 1-1. Key to the whole thing. That was also, by the way, the same Mike Elias, now with the Orioles, who pushed for Correa when he was with the Astros. Lance McCullers was in that draft, and then 3 years later, same draft, they got Alex Bregman, 2nd overall, Kyle Tucker, 5th overall. That is the core of a team that has been the top club in the major leagues in the recent years. You only have to nail down a few winners to turn around a franchise. The Mets, even now, for all of their financial might, they're still kind of living off that good draft run in the teens. Brandon Nimmo, 2011. Jeff McNeil, 12th rounder in 2013. Michael Conforto the next year. Pete Alonso, 2016. That is still the Mets' backbone. 6-year stretch, handful of big scores in the draft. Here's how you win 2 pennants in a World Series. The Royals run in the early aughts, their drafts here. Billy Butler, Alex Gordon, Mike Moustakas, Eric Hosmer in a 5-year stretch. I want you to think about that. Those guys took years to develop, but they did, and it was a core of a title team. They even had a 1-1 in the middle of there, Luke Hochevar, that didn't work out. And yet, they scored 2 pennants, a World Series title. And yet, as good as these guys are, I mean, really think about it now. Are they at the level of the Orioles kids right now? The Baltimore players, I think, we don't know yet, but they should all be better than those guys. And that's a club that won and won big. Jackson Holliday has yet to play in the major leagues. We don't know if he'll be great, but there are certainly indications that he will be. What the Orioles are doing is exceedingly rare. They are identifying and drafting talent at a very high percentage. And in the art and science of building a winning club, that might be the most valuable skill of all. I want to know what you think on X. You can let us know at MLB Now. Which team has the best homegrown core in the majors right now? Let's go to the panel. John Heyman, take it away. Give me something on the Orioles that you see.
Yeah, I mean, brilliant drafting. And certainly it's an advantage to draft 1 through 5, as you saw with Kansas City there, the Cubs, Houston, certainly, Baltimore, true. But I mean, Gunnar Henderson, who may be the best of them all, was drafted 42nd. So they know what they are doing. And Jackson Holliday is going to be a huge star. Great kid. I saw him in spring training. One thing I'll say about Jackson Holliday, you know, I hang around a lot of ballparks, maybe not quite as much as Yonder, but I'm there a lot. Of all the sons of the players, I'd rank him 3rd best I've ever seen. Prince Fielder, unbelievable, hitting home runs at age 12, incredible. There was a young kid named Mahomes, shagging flies out in when he was.
You thought he could have been a great baseball player?
Old.
Really? Okay.
3 years old. He's shagging flies, throwing it back in. Those are the 2 best. This kid, you could see, he was a prodigy. I'd see him in spring training in Jupiter, throwing the ball around with his brother, who's going to be a star also, Ethan Holiday. I mean, the Orioles.
I love that. By the way,
they don't miss. They don't miss. This kid's going to be unbelievable.
Age 3 season. I love this. That's right.
It's incredible.
Go ahead, Gunnar. Give me your thoughts on the draft.
I like something that you said on your essay, which was it takes a team, right? And a lot of people always talk about the GMs and the president, right, drafting these guys, but who's the scouting director? Who's the cross-checker? Who are the area scouts that are doing that? Those are the guys that really go unnoticed in the backfields that are there watching these guys and making these big trades. A guy like Mike Blood, who has come with working with a guy like Mike Elias, right? He comes from the Rangers. He comes from a team like St. Louis, so he knows how to player develop. And I think when you get those guys like that, they're just as important for your team and organization as a GM.
Right. Worth tens of billions of dollars if you can get the right guys.
100%.
What do you think?
Well, I just think it's fun also to compare this to the old days. I think the greatest draft of all time was probably the 1968 LA Dodgers. They got Garvey, they got Lopes, they got Buckner, they got Say, they got Jeff Zahn, they got Joe Ferguson, and the first player in that draft was Bobby Valentine, who lost his career to injury. So that they might have even been better.
That's incredible. I mean, just looking at that run again, that doesn't happen. It never happens. I want to ask you, though, I would think in this day, Yonder, you first, again, you were a first-round pick. In this day and age, again, not even just having the tools and the StatCast and everybody's, every dad's got the kid on the phone and you can measure everything. But I'm saying now that you know where the, youth baseball, you know where the stars are. They roam around together and play each other. How come we're not, are we better at it, at drafting? It doesn't seem like we are at this point.
I think it's a crapshoot. Honestly, I just really do think, I think you have to put so much time and effort into it, which got me thinking on my draft class as well with Cincinnati. And there was a period there of 5 or 6 years that they were throwing out Homer Bailey, Jay Bruce, Mesoraco, Frazier, Mike Leake. These are all, Brad Boxberger and Yasmani Grano. These are all all-stars. These are all all-stars. So they've hit on all these guys, and it takes just a certain different team to go out there and get the right guys. It felt like Walt Jocketty, the GM that was there, every time he hit on somebody, it was nails. I mean, he hit on them, and more than not, they were going to be in the big leagues.
Well, that's it. Even you only have to nail a few. I mean,
few.
Like just hit. I mean, it's not like the Mets are still in my mind. Where it's like still Alonso Conforto, Nimmo is still with the club. They were able to retain him. Yeah. But and that's wild success. Like in a 5 or 6 year period, hey, we got a couple. Let alone McNeil's a later round guy, but. Teams don't even nail their first round guys. That's what is amazing to me.
I think, this shows about the metrics. I think the metrics would show, and I haven't done the research, they are a little bit better now. There was a period where first rounders, now Yonder was a first rounder, only half of the first rounders got to the big leagues. So it really was completely a crapshoot. And now I think it's closer to 2/3. I think they are doing a little bit better with it, with all the different ways that they scout. So I do think it is better, but you're right about the Mets. Paul DeBattista was there then and made some of these picks. Nimmo, incredible pick from Wyoming, didn't even play high school baseball.
Right.
Who would have thought of that? And he is a terrific player.
One last question for Dan. You study, you're a baseball author, and you study the early days of the game. Are we better than when we used to go out and find Jimmy XX Fox on the farm? Right? Are we better than that?
Yes, but it may not be as fun. But yes, actually, the stories of the old scouts finding people and hiding them in their basement while someone else was upstairs trying to sign them. Right. Those might have been fun. But no, I think we're clearly better today with all the metrics. But it's hard, right? You have an 18-year-old kid and you're trying to project him. I mean, it's like trying to find an NBA kid out of high school. I mean, you hit some and you don't hit some.
Yeah, you would think you'd be able to nail it. And again, once you see this, like, Adley Rutschman, of course, obviously that was going to happen. By the way, Book It to the Big Leagues. It's presented by Booking.com. It was not a done deal, right? The Jackson Holliday draft class. At the time, Drew Jones, Andrew Jones' son, was seen as kind of the number one. Do you have awareness of that? Now, again, he's still 20. Like, it's not like, oh, he hasn't worked out. It's very early, but Holiday clearly looks like the pick of the litter.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Mike Elias in spring training. We talked about it, and he, even though he knew the Holiday family because he was in St. Louis when Matt Holiday was a star there, going into the draft, let's say 6 months previous, a year previous, Holiday was really not on anybody's board as a potential even top 5 guy. He was more second half of the first round. Came up later, had that big senior season, and then, you know, he decided this is the guy we're going to make. And I mean, when I say 2/3 make the major leagues, I mean, not only make the major leagues, they're getting guys who are going to be huge stars. Gunnar Henderson is like Bobby Witt. You know, he's that type of player.
And Adley Rutschman's the number 1 catcher in the game already. Like, you're talking about the number 1 catcher.
They couldn't have missed there because the choice was either Witt or Rutschman, right, for number 1. And that was pretty obvious. But to come up with a Gunnar Henderson who's playing in the Deep South, not a lot of people saw him as a first-rounder. I mean, they've done a great job.
You know, I even looked, and I threw it in there, but like the Royals, right? Hosmer, Moustakas, Alex Gordon, and a lot of those guys, Alex Gordon especially, was the number 1 prospect in the sport. It took them years, but they had Luke Hochevar, they had a 1-1, whiffed on that, right? He didn't, you know, God bless him, you know, he had played in the majors, but he did not work out as a 1-1. And they still made it because they nailed those other guys. That's how mercurial it is. You'd figure if you have the number 1 pick in the country, you're going to get somebody.
And BK, one thing you said, too, about that, they nailed on those guys, but they also kept those guys. They didn't trade those guys away. Like, I remember in Cincinnati, they traded all these first-round picks. They traded them for Matt Latos, right? It was 4 guys, 5 guys for Matt Latos. It's interesting with Baltimore. Are they going to keep all these guys that are going to be there, or are they going to trade away 2 or 3 guys to get a bigger arm maybe in the trade deadline? That, for me, is kind of the question mark.
Well, that's the thing, too, is like if you need to be negotiating with Holiday right now. Like right now. Like today, before he gets out on the field, say, hold on a second, I want to talk to you. Bring your dad in, get your agent, do all that. Like that's another part of it.
Good luck. That's Scott Boras' client.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh well. When we come back, all right, the showdown is here. We welcome in Christopher Mad Dog Russo, who's been talking Caitlin Clark for 2 straight weeks, I figure, right? Dog, you all right? You ready to talk a little baseball?
Pretty much.
That's a great show, by the way. I'm a fan.
Funny.
All right, so let's start off. Tyler O'Neill, by the way. I know it's early, but he leads the American League in hitting. He's crushing it for Boston. That deal, dog, Red Sox get Tyler O'Neill from the Cardinals for Victor Santos and Nick Robertson. What do you make of that? Like St. Louis giving this guy away. He's been hurt 2 years, but man, they gave him away.
Now, excellent trade by the Red Sox. The Cardinals have done a bad job with that. They, you know, Vogt was very good for the Yankees for a little while. They traded, obviously, the kid down in Tampa. That way, he was a Cardinal product. Rosarina, they have not done a very good job. I don't like their free agent signings. I'm not a big, I mean, those are a lot of players they had on their team. Lane Thomas is another one. I mean, that's
Tommy Pham had a big year with Tommy Pham had his big year, Tommy Pham. Right, by the way, because now you think, oh, he's an older guy, but at the time he had a 6-win season. You wouldn't know. It's WAR I'm talking about. You wouldn't know that. But he with the Rays afterwards, and like so for a team, we were just talking about the Orioles being good at identifying talent. Aren't the Cardinals supposed to be good at that? Like identifying, drafting, developing. It's strange that they're trading these guys away who become major stars. I don't get it.
That would bother me. Historically, that doesn't. The Cardinals have a tremendous reputation. Go back to the old days. The Brock trade, getting Bob Gibson, Kurt Flood. I mean, you go on and on and on. All those great Cardinal teams. Go back to, you know, Hernandez and Ozzie Smith, the trade they made with Templeton. And you go back in the history of the Cardinals, they've always made either great trades or obviously got lots of great players. They got a lot of great African-American players when they finally went in that direction in the mid-'50s. And, you know, the Floods, the Bill Whites, people like that. And then all of a sudden now they've done a terrible job. So I'm with you 100%. O'Neill, they need his offense now in Fenway because obviously no story for the whole year. So he is, and he's going to protect Devers in that lineup.
Remember,
he's off to the great start, the 5 home runs. Good for him.
Dog, also remember he got benched last year. O'Neill, remember he was hurt. He didn't want to blow himself out, so he got benched for not digging it out and gotten thrown out at the plate. So there seems to be friction. There's things they don't like about players. And again, that's great when you have 15 straight winning years, which they did until last year. It's a little harder now when you're not winning. They lost 91 games last year. So, like, they can do the Cardinal way and say, you're not playing our way and we'll punish you. But you got to be able to assess talent or at least be able to inspire the guys that you're having problems with instead of benching them and alienating them.
No, we gave Oliver Marmol a lot of trouble for that O'Neill thing. That was completely out of line. He got all upset. He called him out, not hustling around third base. And as you said, they benched him, they got rid of him, and now he's turning out to be a great trade by the Red Sox. And they need trades like that, especially now with injuries. And that makes the Cardinals look bad. You know, they made that move for Arenado. They made that trade with Colorado, and everybody thought that Arenado finally got out of Denver. He'd go to a winning franchise and do a super job. They played 3 playoff games, and they've lost all 3 games in the games he's played in and haven't scored any runs. Phillies and Dodgers. So Arenado, who wanted to get out of Denver in the worst way. Now, Colorado's a mess, but it hasn't worked out for him necessarily in St. Louis.
Right. They're still churning out players, the Cardinals still, but it's puzzling. All right, did you see this? This is right up your alley. Rowdy Tellez was defending David Bednar yesterday because that's a nice move. They were saying like some Pittsburgh fans booed. Bednar gave up 4 runs in the 9th to blow this game. I think he's lost 3 out of 4 blown saves. And there's like 5,000 people there, 8,000 people there yesterday. Are we getting a little sensitive about, oh, my guy was booed, that he was saying this is unacceptable in Pittsburgh, he's a local guy? Where are you on this?
Yeah, Tellez just got there, too. It's not like he's been, he's not Roberto Clemente. He hasn't been there for 25 years, who's a lifeline pirate. So, I mean, listen, Bednar has been an excellent relief pitcher.
Yes, he has.
I probably would give him a little break on April 9th or April 8th. I wouldn't have booed him if I was sitting there. But the Pirate fan who has had not a lot to cheer about, they're off to a wonderful start. They're playing the Tigers. They got a big lead in the 9th inning. Yeah. And then he blows the game. I mean, and listen, this is what fans do. You got to accept it. You got to move on. You got to say, you know what? I don't blame him. I've been bad. It's not worth calling attention to it by calling out the few fans that are at the ball game and saying, how dare they boo our guy? That's not the right thing to do.
That's a good point. Also, when I hear that a guy gets booed in this day and age, Dog, I don't believe it. I have to listen for myself. Because if I had just listened to media reports and what guys are saying on social media, I would have thought Francisco Lindor is getting booed in Queens all the time. And it's not the case. I've seen it. And there can be disappointment and sounds and groans of disappointment in the crowd. It does not equate to the booing that used to occur. You and I used to see it in the 70s and 80s. It was a whole different ball game back then. I don't think there was even much booing yesterday for Bednar. There was people are allowed. He gave up 4 runs. By the way, he got dinked and dunked. He didn't give up a 3-run home run. It was hard luck. But people are allowed to be disappointed that you blow a 3-run, 4-run lead in the 9th inning.
Hey, they booed Mickey Mantle for crying out loud. I mean, they booed DiMaggio. They booed, listen, I was there. They booed Judge. I've heard them boo Judge way back when. They've given him a hard time. I know that's New York. It's a little different. But, I mean, this is the way it is. These fans pay their money and let them express their frustration for a couple seconds. And fans are fickle. I'm one of them, I know. Fans are fickle because the next time Bednar goes in there, he'll have a 1, 2, 3, 9-pitch inning and he'll get a standing ovation. That's the way fans are. And you're not going to wait. You know better than anybody. Fighting the paying customer never works.
Right.
When you start getting on the paying customer, you're going to lose that one all the time. Yeah. So you might as well just leave it alone, be a professional, and say, hey, you know what, I stunk, let him boo, I'll do better next time.
I think,
that's the way you handle it.
And I've never booed anybody in my life. When I've been a fan, I've been, don't believe in it.
I agree, I don't like it either.
I can't do it.
I haven't either.
They're not animals in a zoo. And yet, I think that's overblown. When guys have a little smattering, they get used to just being idolized. There's smattering these days. All right, Dog, you look sharp. We'll let you go. Thanks, pal.
Good talk on Jackson Holiday. You guys did a great job on that. I enjoyed that.
Thank you, Doggy. We'll see you next time. Dodgers and Twins coming up as soon as we're done. Twins have lost 4 in a row to drop to 3-6. Dodgers doing what you'd expect. They've won the last 2. They're now 10-4. Bobby Miller, who sits 99, as we say in the business. That's
very good.
It's a baseball term.
Yeah, I like
that. A lot of people don't know that. He got lit up last time out. Chris Paddock is back. The sheriff pitches for the Twins.
Shooter.
Yeah, pitching fairly well. Coming back, he's had 2 Tommy John surgeries. Dodgers and Twins should be a good ball game. Comes their way right here live on MLB Network as soon as we're done. Let's do a little matinee idol since we have a matinee game, and that's Byron Buxton in there. And Buxton, I didn't have to check. Look, he makes catches like this. That's a 40% catch probability because he's got that speed. But Yonder, the main thing is he's playing in the field, which is that he's so far healthy.
Yeah, so far healthy. I'm just concerned by the style of play that he plays with. I mean, we understand that this guy hasn't played 100 games. The most games he's played is 92 in 2022. I would put a rule on him that he can't dive headfirst. Kind of like what they're doing with
Yeah.
Tatis. Tatis right now, every time he steals, he goes feet first in the outfield. He never dives shoulders. Any play around the wall, he's got to be much more careful. They need 120, 130 games from Byron Buxton to put up crazy numbers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, he did play 140 games in 2017. Since then, he's played fewer than half the games. I talked to him in spring training. It is such a shame. It's not only a shame for him, it's a shame for baseball because this guy is an amazing talent. He said he's going to dial back. Last year, he was a little too aggressive. He wanted to play at least 140 games. This year, it's at least 100 he wants to play. And if he does play 100, that'll be good for him.
Yeah, you're a Twins guy.
I'm a Twins guy.
So give me your read on him.
You know, the Twins really miss him. That 21 season, he was having a great year. He hurt his hand. He hurt his hamstring. He was AL Player of the Month in 2021. So we really miss him. The other thing I would just say is he has great judgment along with the athleticism. If you look at the record since World War II, 80 steals minimum. He has the highest steal percentage or lowest caught stealing percentage of anybody in baseball since World War II.
They're in a lucky team. I mean, they have three super talents. We were talking about guys drafted in the top 5. They've got Correa drafted 1-1. Royce Lewis 1-1. This guy was drafted 2nd overall, and they all have injury problems. If they kept them healthy, this team should win that division.
Meantime, we have the day in catching, and probably the best performance of the season was yesterday for Shea Langoliers. 3 for 4, 3 home runs, including one in the 9th when they're down 1 against Jose Leclerc. It's a 2-run shot to essentially win it. Now, but we don't, on this show, we don't just show home runs and look, home runs and he won the game. No, we're getting deeper into that. So let's get to him behind the plate. And StatCast is powered by Google Cloud. Yeah, there's the game winner and they won the game and all that, and they've won 3 straight. But take a look at this. This guy does it. We'll back this up again with the StatCast metrics. Look at this throw. Look at how fast he gets out. Blocks the pitch. And yonder, he's up and firing.
Yeah, you don't really talk about it that much. This guy is one of the more elite catchers behind the plate. This guy's framing has gotten better. The way he's throwing, he's one of the best. Nobody runs on this guy. Him and Gabriel Moreno right now, I would say, have the 2 best arms in the league.
Really. Now, here are the metrics now. StatCast powered by Google Cloud. Take a look. He throws the hardest of any catcher. He's got the highest velocity of any catcher out there. Pop time, tied for first. Arm strength, he's thrown it at almost 85 miles an hour. He is first. So he is super elite. The caught stealing above average is a little early to get that stew together, but eventually we'll be looking at that metric to try to measure guys.
Well, what's interesting is I think that as we get the robo-umps in, the whole pitch framing thing is going to be less of the story, and the arm strength is going to be more. And I think that's fun because stealing is a fun part of the game.
I would also say the pitchers have a lot to do with that, right? If you're quick to the plate, more than not, you're going to have a better chance.
They work, by that way, in that metric, caught stealing above average, they try to bake that into that cake.
Oh.
They try, because the time that you take absolutely does that. By the way, have you seen, the Mets have not thrown out a guy all season. I know it's early, but they're over 21, 100% success rate. Unbelievable.
The 2 things that are unbelievable about this are that Francisco Alvarez actually has an excellent arm.
Yeah.
That's number one. The other thing is that they made a concerted effort in spring training to improve this. Last year, Alvarez threw out like 12 to 13% of the runners, which doesn't make sense for him. He should be certainly over 20% with that arm. So they made an effort, and they still cannot do it.
Yesterday, too, it was the 21st that was out there. I'm glad it was a concerted effort, John, because what if it wasn't?
Yeah.
I mean, but can't get any worse. Just let him run.
Well, like we were talking about the Oakland A's giving their catchers a little bit of time. You can say the opposite about the Mets, right? When you talk about the pitchers' advanced metrics and how many steal bases they lead.
This is
I mean, it's at the top, right?
I mean,
it's at the top.
Yonder, it's what we call a non-competitive throw.
That stolen base wasn't on Narvaez, though. It was clearly on the pitcher. I mean,
is that a pitch out?
It felt like it took 3 seconds to get to home plate.
Was that a pitch out? Am I missing something? And yet still not close. So all right. So here's a new one. Now, pitcher base advances prevented.
Right.
In the worst. All right.
It's important, especially for a first base coach. Now going into a series, we're running at all will. It's green light for everybody instead of maybe going to another place that they could command the running game a lot more and says, all right, well, now we got to take our chances here.
Yeah. That's the thing is that we're still in the 2 disengagement era. We're still early in that and taking it. And teams will go berserk on you if you allow it, and it looks like that's happening. All right, we'll take a short break. When we come back Monday, from a loaded-up weekend, and Shane Bieber had been all
like the wind.
There goes Corbin. Go, Corbin, go!
He plays D.
Oh, he's got his signature play, that sliding grab. Pound
pound for pound, maybe the strongest player in the league.
It's been an incredible ride.
Time now for Asking the Right Questions, presented by CFP Professionals. We've been talking about the notable pitchers with elbow injuries. This is on Monday from a loaded-up weekend. And Shane Bieber had been off to a sensational start for Cleveland, out for the season. Yuri Perez was, I think, on Friday, where he's out for the year. Young, possible star for the Marlins. He's out. The rest of those guys, stars, we knew they were already gone. And then here, if you look at just the last few days, Framber Valdez, elbow soreness. Nick Pivetta, maybe that's good news, had an MRI, but he's got an elbow flexor strain. Josiah Gray, that just happened too. MRI did not reveal structural damage, but again, a lot of sore elbows out there. It was back with the full crew. Brian Kenny here with John Heyman, Yonder Alonso, Dan Levitt. I want to show you guys something from yesterday, because we're going to be talking about this on every show, and every columnist is writing a thing about it and saying, hey, what do you do? What is baseball going to do about these pitcher injuries? What are they going to do? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to throw 102 miles an hour. This is Michael Kopech last night. He's already had, Yonder, Tommy John surgery. He's back. He looks sensational. And what plays? Velocity.
Yeah.
So his stuff and the velo, it plays. It's successful. It's what everybody wants. It's the incentive system, and you're rewarded for it. So I don't have an answer. I mean, I have answers, but I don't have solutions, right? We just have, this is happening. I don't know how you stop it.
I don't have answers either, but maybe solutions, perhaps. I think everything in itself has a 10% weight on it. I think pitchers right now are more into the velocity scheme. Notice, you don't really see shoulders blowing up. Right? All the workouts, all the stuff they do.
That used to be the thing.
That used to be the thing.
Back in the old days, in our era, right? it was the top,
I also think the way they're going about their business now, when the season's over, they're going to all these places to try to, get a few more miles in them, so they don't take that 2 or 3 month of a break to pick up a baseball. And it has changed. I think the game has changed. The way they pitch has changed. Even as a hitting standpoint, it's changed because of what the pitchers have done. So there is some truth to a lot of the things that are happening. I think the running game has a lot to do with it as well. It puts a lot more stress on their elbows. But again, it's the way they pitch. There's no more the 92, 93 to command down and away. Right. It's more the 100 miles an hour and going multiple innings like we're seeing with Kopech. This guy's been throwing 25 to 30 pitches in the 8th and the 9th because he's their best weapon out of the bullpen.
Right. But how do you, like, it's one thing when a guy gets to the majors, like, okay, I want to pitch, like a guy who, like Whitey Ford did back in the day.
Right.
But how do you tell that to a 17 or 18 or a 19-year-old who is somewhere in the system where I have no guarantee of making it and getting a career except when I start popping that mitt and throwing exploding stuff?
Well, two things. One is I think it starts before they're 17, too, right? I mean, part of what's going on here is you got these kids that are 12 to 15, and they're trying to max velo and do funky stuff with the spin so they get noticed. Plus, we're playing full year plays now. We're not just summer. So they're throwing a lot more. So I think there's an issue at the youth level. I mean, the other thing, one sort of funky possible solution would be let's get rid of some of this pitch design. So maybe if you put a cap, a limit on the spin rate. So if someone, whatever number that is, so if the spin is more than X,
speed limit and a spin limit.
Well, I don't know about a speed limit, but how about a spin limit, right? You have it out there, and that way you don't have these massive breaks and you don't have sort of the same tension put on arms.
Remember, they're going to do that with the sticky stuff, that if the spin rate went up at a certain point, but then it's like, oh, but my spin rate when I throw harder, actually, it doesn't matter. So, well, I love that you tried.
You got to get.
It's not going to work. That's not going to work. All right, what works? Anything? Can anything stop this?
Oh, man, I just got to have less emphasis on the velocity and the spin rate somehow. And I think it's a mistake the way these teams are going about it, because the Atlanta Braves had the best pitching in baseball for more than a decade, and they had two guys who were not throwing hard, Glavine and Maddox. There have to be other guys out there who are able to do this. I saw Quintana the other day getting guys out throwing 89 consistently. There have to be other guys to do it. And I understand the lineups are deeper. You don't have that shortstop and the center fielder who can't hit anymore like we did in my era, not your era, but even further back.
Yes.
Now the lineups are deeper. It's a little more difficult, but there's got to be some Glavines out there. There's got to be a Maddox out there that someone can discover. I know it's easier to say, oh, this guy threw 98, let's draft him, but hey, it doesn't always work out that way, because there are a lot of guys throwing 98 who aren't getting guys out, and most of the guys who do throw 98 get hurt eventually anyway. I think they got to emphasize, let's see who knows how to pitch.
It's funny you say that. The hardest guys that gave me problems were the guys that were throwing 91 to 93 miles an hour.
But it's
with
not,
5 different pitches.
But it's not getting you drafted. It's not getting you your bonus.
But it should.
It's not getting you from high A to AAA. It's not getting you on the travel team when you're 12. Right. It's popping the mid.
You can say the same thing about hitting. Luis Arias, why is he not getting paid like a $35 million player a year?
Well, he'll get paid if he hits the market and he had a season like he did last year, he would get paid. But a guy like that, when he's 12, what are his rewards? Actually, he's going to turn into Jose Altuve. I got to put the ball out because that's really what we want. Yeah. Right. That pays. All right. Let's continue to ask the right questions here. Tyler Glasnow last night, he went 7 shutout innings, 14 strikeouts, no walks. I'm asking the question, could he be, given that the Dodgers, look, they're getting into the playoffs. So where the playoffs, could he be their most important signing of the offseason? And I know there's competition. Go ahead.
Are you kidding?
No.
I mean, who did they sign? I mean, Yonder told me. I mean, how can you ask that question? They signed the best player in baseball.
Right, they could have a killer lineup. It's still not the best lineup in the game, and you could still get swept with the best offense in the game in the first round.
Tyler Glasnow has incredible talent, amazing stuff. He's never thrown more than 125 innings in a year. He's an outstanding pitcher when healthy. I like the move. It's not even on the same planet as signing Ohtani. Not even close.
I wonder, in a division series where you have a quality start, where you have a dominant start, I'm not so sure. I know what you're saying. Ohtani's not pitching this season. What do you think?
I still think Ohtani, Yamamoto, I think both of those guys are even on another different step and level of what they did in the offseason. Yes, Glasnow is a guy who's an ace, and he'll probably start game 1 of a playoff. I get that. Mm-hmm. But without Ohtani, it's just.
See, I don't in a short season. I know what you're saying. I'm not completely sold, but like in a 5-game series, like one hitter. Look at last year. Mookie Betts cold. Freeman was kind of cold. You don't think Ohtani can cold for 2 days? Whereas your starter, if you can deal for that one game, there's nothing more important than that.
Well, between him and Yamamoto, obviously having a top two starters in the playoffs makes all the difference. The key, too, if we're Glasnow is staying healthy. I mean, let's see where we are at the end of the year. But he's been great.
Very reasonable. Very reasonable fellow, your friend.
You were looking at me askance. Is that the word? Askance. I like the askance. I'm quizzical with what you're asking right now. Look, there's no guarantee of Glasnow doing it. I'm just saying, he had 88 pitches yesterday. That is the fewest amount of pitches to have 14 strikeouts and no walks for anybody for 7 innings. It was dominant. All right, not just asking any questions, asking the right questions, although he might not agree with that. We'll take a short break. When we come back. All right, we're asking you at MLB Now on X, which team has the best homegrown core in the majors right now? A lot of ways of looking at it. We had varying responses as well. Braves certainly are up there, but international signings also. Michael Harris drafted, Austin Riley drafted, Spencer Strider. No, Mark, that's the price of success, man. You got to dip down low. They tore it down to the studs before they built it back up. All right, the homegrown talent. Here's JD. Houston can't stand. I can't stand Houston, but I'll respect him. Look, they've built it that way. Also, in addition to their drafts, right, their international signings. And here, Lumbo goes all the way. No, yeah, Texas ball, Seattle. Seattle deserve to be up there. Yeah, their pitching staff is interesting.
I like this list, though. Houston, Toronto. Baltimore, 1-2. That's what I would say.
Now, Toronto, we've gotten used to Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero and Kevin Biggio, right? But at one point, that was big news. And the Reds, the Reds were a revelation last year.
They've always been able to do it, and they're continuing to do it now.
Albert, thank you with that. Yeah, well, we're going to talk Reds baseball right now. Time for our baseball-y plays of the day, Young Stars edition. Let's go back to the Orioles. Start with Gunnar Henderson. He's doing this a lot, Dan. Let's start with this. Watch him take off on this. He's gone. It's too late. Too late. Just takes off. Just gets a great jump. Yep. And the success rate at third base is astronomically high.
Yeah, but it's the shift, right? You can't do that. You can't do that against a guy like that can run at second base.
Is that Devers at third? I mean,
Devers at third.
You've got to be there. You just can't ignore it. Take advantage if they're going to give it to you. How about the Royals and the Astros? Here's Bobby Witt in a 3-3 ball game. Knocking this ball down, keeping it in the infield. Tried with the throw.
Saved the game.
Amazing talent. He and Henderson are similar talents.
Now they got a strikeout after that, and then Salvador Perez would walk it off in the bottom half. So he did. He saved the game right there.
What's the beauty of that? He does that, and Salvi goes straight to Bobby Witt to tell him, "You're the reason we won this game. You saved that run in the prior inning for me to be able to do that."
Right. That's why Salvi's a great captain. There
he is, picking him up.
There we go. Nicely done. See, they know the baseball he plays.
They do.
And now you do as well. All right, let's do Ellie De La Cruz, who can just put on an incredible show. This is on Monday. Watch this little ground ball. You have to rush the throw. He beats that out. Gets away, goes to second. Was ruled an error. He's at third.
Yeah.
I mean, he's already there.
He and Witt, 2 fastest guys in the game.
And then he'd score on this ground ball. You have no play. That matters a lot.
All speed.
Yeah.
Ball didn't leave the infield.
Yeah, he's just at third and he just goes. Now in the fourth inning, he's on first. They're going to lay one down, get him moving. You got to be careful because he'll keep moving. Now it gets thrown away, but they're forcing this action. And here comes De La Cruz all the way around from first.
Amazing.
And he's like very safe. And they still get third.
Goodness.
Get that trail runner.
It's got like Dion's speed.
Look at him go.
Dion told me that football and baseball speed are different. I got football speed, but this guy's got it too.
Yeah, like a 4-1 in that area.
Yeah.
Right. Not only that, look, the thing is like so commanding and he's so safe in so many ways. And then he has the ability to do this. Now here's the main thing yonder. Is he going to be able to hit? He's got to hit no matter what.
He's going to be able to hit because of the speed. Speed never lacks, right? You can do that every time. I just think the speed is going to be able to keep him afloat, being consistent. But what he's done, I mean, look, we haven't seen the stuff he's done before. The 4+ runs scored, inside the park home run, homer from both sides of the plate, 4+ runs scored at the same day. That's never happened before in the game.
Yeah. Do we have those other plays? We have a home run? We don't have it. All right, so let's get to unbasebally plays. We were doing MLB tonight, last night. Small thing. Again, won't make the highlights, but we're talking Sonny Gray versus Zach Wheeler. This is a real duel. It's a 1-0 ball game in the 5th. I saw this fly ball in the air, and now maybe I'm being harsh on Brandon Marsh, but I thought he's got to play. That's Burleson at third. You got to play. Instead, airmails it way up the line, and the runner advances.
Yeah, especially with no outs right there, and with Wheeler on the mound. It's a 1-0 game. Anything can happen. A big homer. I'm sure Paco Figueroa, the
ground ball
coach right there, is
runner
not happy.
scores. So instead of being at second and then ground ball, then you stay at second, he's at third. Instead, he scores on that. And the difference, Yonder, you and I were watching this last night. It should have been a 1-0 ball game, a duel between Gray and Wheeler. Instead, it's 3-0 and it was comfortable. Whole different ball game.
The way you managed the game is coming. You pretty much said, okay, I got to get 6 outs after that and then see what happens.
It was a mistake. Yeah, I wouldn't say you're harsh on Marsh, but I like that.
I don't want to be harsh on Marsh.
No.
So, again, I'm being a little demanding. I don't know if we can see it again. I'm being a little demanding, but I thought my inner computer told me he's throwing this guy out. I know he was deep. Maybe, am I unrealistic?
It was deep, fairly deep. But you got to hit the cut at least.
Right. One or the other. Hit the cutoff or get it home.
Right. Because then it goes, I wonder, how often does that happen? That's the thing that is not being measured. For all the things we measure, like trail runners advancing, and then you score on a ground ball as opposed to second base where you're harmless. You know, it's a huge difference.
That's what we were talking about. It's a lot different to pitch with men on second than men on third. Sliders now need to be buried a little bit less. It's different.
All right. Oh, we have the LA plays now. They've just arrived from cyberspace.
Look at this. We've never seen this in one night. Homer from both sides of the plate, hit a homer, then hits an inside the Parker.
And here it is.
Scores 4 times in one game. And by the way, had a stolen base. This is what he does. This is what he does any given night. This is why he's so special. We've never seen that in the history of our game.
Were you saying, too, I think before the show, like, don't dive for an Ellie De La Cruz line drive. Like, play defense.
You got to play defense.
Right, because he's going to circle the bases on you.
On a small park, in a small stadium.
Right. If you give him a single, he's going to steal second, third, and home anyway, right?
He's already in scoring position.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What do you say?
You got to prevent him from getting on base somehow.
That's probably the best way to do it. This is why I look askance at you all the time. All right, time for Think Baseball. These guys
the obvious. I said the obvious. That's my role here.
You're the Javi Baez. You have a high variance of MLB Now. We're asking you. Jackson Holliday was drafted out of high school in 2022, debut less than 2 years later. Which player was the fastest to reach the majors after being drafted out of high school? Think Baseball, the answer next.
카드를 넣어주세요.